Thanks for clicking. My name is Mark Mitchell. I'm a mortgage broker here in London, Ontario. As Canada's real estate market has underwent unprecedented price growth over the past few years, with 2021 seeing home prices go up by 26.6% alone, the amount of houses selling for over $1 million has skyrocketed. While million-dollar homes were the norm in cities such as Vancouver and Toronto for the past few years, this trend has become more and more prevalent in even the smaller cities throughout Canada. A study recently released by RE/MAX showed that the prices of homes sold over $1 million have climbed to 517%, 255%, 208%, and 199% in Barrie, London, Kitchener-Waterloo, and Hamilton. Well, this is obviously great news if you already own a home.
I win!
In one of these cities. If you are selling a home in one of these cities, it creates a real problem for first-time home buyers and for the overall Canadian real estate market as a whole. So what I want to do today is go over the mortgage qualification standards for those homes listed over $1 million, as they differ quite a bit from those homes listed under $1 million, with the qualification standards being much more difficult. Then I want to go over the implications for the Canadian real estate market, especially for first-time home buyers and for those that have traditionally looked at houses in that $500K mark. And then I want to go over some of the policy proposals that have come out over the past few months and how those proposals will both help and hurt the Canadian real estate market and first-time home buyers as a whole. We will be having an update on Wednesday as the Bank of Canada is set to release its interest rate update, with many predicting a big rise in interest rates over the next few months. And we'll also be going over the monetary policy report, which is looking like it's going to have some predictions for the Canadian real estate market in 2022. Click like and subscribe if you want to get those updates, but for now, let's get into these mortgage qualification standards. The main difference between qualifying for a mortgage on a home that sells for $999,000 and one that sells for $1 million is mortgage insurance. The way it works now is that if a house is sold for under $1 million, you are able to qualify for a mortgage with less than 20% down and get mortgage insurance. So, for a house that's listed for $999,000, you can borrow you have to have a down payment of 5% on the first $500,000 and a 10% down payment on the next $500,000. So on a house that's sold for $999,000, you would need to have a down payment of $74,999. The minute you bump up to that $1 million mark, when it's you're looking at a $1 million purchase price, all of a sudden you can't get mortgage insurance anymore, and as such you need to have a 20% down payment. So you go from having to have a down payment of about $75,000 to a down payment of $200,000, a $125,000 difference.
Like, big difference.
So as more and more of these houses are sold for $1 million, it puts a lot of pressure on those houses that are listed between that $500,000 to $999,000 range. There's a big difference between having a down payment of $75,000 and $200,000 for most first-time home buyers. Just in my hometown, London, Ontario alone, we've seen the number of houses sell for $1 million triple over these past few years. Now, many are probably saying, yeah, $1 million home, most people can't afford that, and that's definitely true. But what that difference in down payment does is it really narrows the amount of people between that $500 to $1 million range. It really narrows it down and bids the prices of those homes up closer and closer to that $1 million range. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that people can't get mortgage insurance on these $1 million homes.
It runs downhill, money goes up.
Yeah, and I think we're really seeing the effects of this, as we noted in a report last week. More and more first-time home buyers are being pushed out of the market. They're having their relative share of the Canadian real estate market shrink over the past 6 years. Whereas repeat homeowners, those that already have a house, those that are going to gain a large down payment from the sale of their house, their share of the overall Canadian real estate market has increased as well. So we're seeing first-time home buyers pushed out, their share shrink, whereas those that can afford that $200,000 down payment, those that don't need to get the mortgage insurance, their share of the real estate market is increasing. So, in an effort to combat this problem, right or wrong, and we'll get into that, the Liberal government announced during the campaign that they would be increasing the amount that Canadians could get mortgage insurance on to $1.25 million. So, You would be able to, they weren't exactly clear on how this would work, but you wouldn't need a 20% down payment on homes up to $1.25 million. There are two major problems with this. The first being whether or not it is sustainable long term, and the second being risk allocation. So in the short term, yes, raising the amount that you can get mortgage insurance for would definitely decrease some of that pressure between that $500K to $1 million mark. A lot of those people that are stuck between just under $1 million would be able to move up to that 1.25 million dollar mark, and that would relieve some of that pressure, as say that 500K buyer wouldn't be competing with that 900K buyer.
Now we can be friends again.
There would definitely open up some of the space. With that said, once you can get mortgage insurance on that $1.25 million, the whole market would just, it's widely predicted the whole market would just fly up, would just be propped up even higher than it is now, which would also help, which would push out that 400K buyer. And then that would just become the new norm, all things being equal. Interest rates are definitely going up, and that will help relieve some of the pressure as well. But all things being equal, you're still going to push some buyers out of the market, and we're just going to push the overall market up and up and up. That's one big concern, but another big concern that I think that is rarely talked about, is that it would really take more and more pressure off of the banks and move it onto the insurers, especially the government-backed insurers like CMHC. And I'm not sure. It's just not clear to me that taxpayers who have been unable to get into the market are going to be okay with taking on more risk, so that someone that's buying $1 million home can bump up to $1.25 million home.
Yeah, I'm not okay with that.
As the risk moves from the banks to the insurance companies, to the government-backed insurance companies, that's the taxpayer guaranteeing that money. And it's just not clear to me that that's going to be okay with a lot of first-time home buyers that are trying to get into the market, even at that $500-600K mark, and haven't been able to. So we really are stuck with it between a rock and a hard place. Either the government takes on more risk out from the banks, or we continue to push out these first-time home buyers that have been, as we talked about a few videos ago, have been largely getting more and more pushed out of the market already. As homes get closer and closer to that $1 million, that big down payment jump from $75,000 to $200,000 is huge for most people. There have been other proposals, which we've also talked about on this channel, such as increasing the taxes on all homes over $1 million. And definitely, as we said, we are going to be seeing some interest rate hikes coming down the pipe sooner rather than later. It could be as early as next week. Many others are predicting it's going to be in March or April, but there's definitely their qualification standards are going to get much more tighter as time goes on. So it's not clear that this $1 million house problem is going to be widespread, that it's going to be just the complete and total norm throughout Canada, but it definitely is a problem that so many first-time homebuyers are being pushed out of the market as we get closer and closer to that $1 million mark. And not even just getting closer to that $1 million mark, it makes it more and more difficult between that $500K to $1 million mark, as there's much more competition. If people can't get out of that $1 million, they're going to compete with those people that around that $500,000, $700,000 range, which just pushes prices up more and more and more. So we definitely have a supply issue in Canada. There's not enough houses, which has been well documented, and we definitely have been living off cheap money for a long time, which has helped bid the price up of Canadian real estate. So we're really starting to see the effects of this cheap money, of this lack of supply, as we have way more cities than we ever had where the average price is $1 million, and in our policies just haven't kept up with that new reality. Whether or not this will continue will be largely dependent, I think, on the interest rate policies coming out in the next week, definitely, but in the next few months in 2022 and 2023, as we start to see if the end of cheap money can slow down the market. How much it will slow down the market, I think it will slow it down. I don't think it'll crash it, but time will tell. We'll definitely have updates as that continues. Click like and subscribe to get those, and thanks so much for watching.